Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And as you know, if you've listened to this at all, or if you know me at all, you know it's way more fun for me to talk about things like this with actual other humans. I had the pleasure of having a really great conversation at a coffee shop today where I ran into three other people I knew while waiting to meet with the reason that I was meeting at this coffee shop. And it reminds me of how cool it is to know people in a town. I was going to say relatively small town, but Fargo's not really a small town. It just sometimes has a small town feel when you go to the same places. And at this coffee shop today, it was so much fun to run into people who I know who happen to be at the same place. And that happens quite frequently in Fargo. And the longer you live someplace and the more connections you make, I suppose it's more likely those things will happen. And I'm just reminded of how cool it is to see humans as humans and not as objects. Now, I use that language because many years ago I became aware of a book called Leadership and Self Deception by an organization called the Arbinger Group. And I've been noticing lately how much the principles in that book seem to be evident to me when I observe people and myself in these how will I describe I'm looking here, January 15th, 2026. You can look back on history and see what might have caused some unrest in me and others in the world right now, not just emotionally, but physically. I mean, I can feel it in my shoulders, in my jaw, my breathing. I actually sort of lost it last week. Thank goodness I have a trusted mentor who was willing to provide me space to just get out some of my frustrations. If I didn't have that, if we didn't have a space to be able to process some of our feelings and emotions, boy, I can see how things get pent up. And I've come to observe and know for myself that what doesn't get expressed gets repressed. And that's where illness comes from, where, you know, um, disease comes from, dis-ease, right? So I don't want to get political today, but I also don't want to pretend that this isn't affecting how we show up with one another, especially in leadership capacities. And when I say leadership, I don't necessarily always only mean a title or a position. I mean people who are seeing themselves as a leader with agency in their own lives. And sometimes it's easy to forget that we do have choice in any matter. We have choice. May not be easy choices, yet we do have choices. And so this is what I want to explore today. What happens when leaders, we included anybody really who's listening to this podcast, what happens when we lose the practice or the ability, sometimes it feels like the ability to see people as people? What happens? What happens to us who feel marginalized and not seen? And what happens to us when we recognize that we are doing that? So these two books were so instrumental in my own personal development. I'm going to hold them up if you're watching live. You can see that I actually have the books Leadership and Self-Deception. The subtitle is Getting Out of the Box. And then the other one is The Anatomy of Peace, Resolving the Heart of Conflict. We've studied these two books in several groups over the years, and had opportunities to actually create dialogue around them. So that's really, really helpful. I love reading and studying on my own, and I love even more studying and processing ideas with others. So this is kind of what I'm doing today in the hope that someone will hear this and maybe want to start a dialogue with someone else in your life or with me. And if that means in the comments, please feel free and welcome to do that. And I will watch the comments here if anybody wants to do that. If not, I'll just tell you about this in the hope that you will take something into a circle where you are physically or even virtually. So when we're under stress, this book, Leadership and Self-Deception, talks about how we unconsciously have a tendency to turn others into obstacles that get in our way, or vehicles that we can use to get what we want. We also can overlook their humanity. And when we do that, they call it being in the box. And this doesn't mean that they're bad or wrong or we're bad or wrong. It just means this is what happens when we find ourselves under stress. They're not bad people as we see them. They just become objects in the story we're telling about whatever the situation is that's caused us stress. So I think what happens in this way, by the way, the book goes into a lot. It's a story, so you can learn about people in the story. But it's a story of a leader who's sharing this model with other people in his office. And it's really cool because it's not a preachy book. It's an invitation to examine where I, the reader, might have done this. And I completely have done this. So I would ask myself, and I'll ask you if you're considering this as you're observing what's going on in the world right now, where have you or might you have stopped being curious about someone else's inner world, about what could have happened to someone else or what could have caused someone else to be exhibiting the behaviors they are exhibiting right now? When we do that, when we forget to be curious, we've fallen below the line into unconscious behavior, which is closed, defensive, committed to being right. Again, I'm mixing books here, but that one's from the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. When we find that, we are treating others as obstacles that get in our way or vehicles we can use to get ahead. We have fallen below the line or gotten in the box. And so I might ask myself too, is there someone in my life I have reduced to simply a role? Or I have looked at them as a label or a problem that needs to be solved. And that can be a really difficult awareness. And it also is the first step to coming, what they call in the book, getting out of the box. Because when you're in the box and you're in that world of I'm right, they call that self-deception. You deceive yourself. One of the examples in the book is you get on an elevator and you see a person running toward the elevator while the doors are closing, and you choose not to hold the door open. In that moment, you've made that person an obstacle. You've said that person is going to make me late. And as the doors close, you start justifying your behavior. And when we do that, it's a sure sign we've gotten into the box, as they say, and that we have seen the other as an obstacle or a vehicle or irrelevant. And so what happens when we feel that way, our bodies feel attacked and we start seeing ourselves on alert. You know, it's that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which by the way, I really like fawn as an addition to this for me in my awareness, because fawning is what we've learned to do to accommodate bullying behavior. We want to escape the wrath of someone who we might be the victim of their inability to see us as humans. Fight, flight, freeze are pretty obvious. Fight, I will fight you. Flight, I will leave. Freeze, I don't know what to do, so I just am frozen. And then fawn is, kiss up to that person in a way that we hope will have them leave us alone. And when we are in that state, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which is our limbic system, I believe, it's not a conscious. We are trying to stay safe. And we then, what happens, you seek control because you want to get back in control of the situation when you feel out of control. It's an automatic thing. It's not coming from our thought process. And so when we get into that space as leaders or people who are guiding the work or the lives of other people, we are trying to control and we forget about compassion. We forget that they're human, right? And that can look in many ways, especially in leadership roles, as certainty, which we've already talked about in other podcasts or I've written in other places. Certainty kills curiosity. which would make sense in that above and below the line model as well. Certainty kills curiosity. I'm right, you're wrong, you're an object, I'm in charge, I'm right. Certainty. It can also be rigidity, like there's no opening, there's no possibility. It might be blame, like it's your fault, not mine. Oh, you made me do it. I mean, you can apply this idea to anything you've witnessed recently in person or online. When we get into that space, control without compassion, right? It's because we feel stressed. We feel that we have no other option. And I'm not excusing this behavior. I'm noticing what happens when we feel that below the line behavior. It's unconscious. We're not, I'm not excusing that behavior. I'm just helping us notice what happens. It's happened to all of us. It's happened to me. If we don't know better, we can't do better. But the challenge is knowing better and choosing on purpose not to do better. That's bad. That's just bad. That's bad behavior that produces bad outcomes. And when we don't own our own behavior and our own awareness, we're the effect of things instead of being at the cause. So when your nervous system is activated, because it will be, that's what all of this is. It's about your nervous system. This is something happening in your physical body. Then I would ask myself, I feel it in my jaw and my shoulders. When I feel that, do I automatically narrow my vision or do I widen my vision? Do I try to understand what could be happening, or do I double down on my own view of how I see the world? And those are really good questions. And the notification for us is different. It's could be your chest, it could be your stomach, it could be a lot of things. Where do you notice it in yourself? And what happens when you start seeing people as objects? So compassion is key here. What I've learned over the years and all this work I've done, this personal development work I've done, which could look on the outside soft, touchy-feely, I've learned that my compassion has grown as my awareness has grown. That doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. There are things that we need to do to redirect behavior that is not producing the result we say we want, especially in leadership and business settings. We can punish. I mean, that's punish. You're punished. You're on a PIP. You're on a performance improvement plan. You've done this wrong. You're bad. This is the consequence you have to endure. We can do that. Or we can ignore it and hope it goes away, having never told the other person what the behavior was that caused them to fall out of favor in a nice way. If people don't know how to redirect, if they don't know that their behavior is causing something that is not desired, how can they possibly do better? If we don't know better, we can't do better. And if we know better and choose not to do better, that's a different story. So if we can really think about things like compassion, empathy, all those traditional soft ways of being in the world, which have not always had a place in business, because business is about key performance indicators, about getting things done, about numbers, about measurables. That's what business has been about. I'm not even saying that's wrong or bad. I wonder, though, if there could be another way to achieve those key performance indicators in a way other than pushing and forcing and making and using fear or this concept of seeing people as objects. So I'm just wondering about this. The ability to stay in a relationship with the humanity of another person, even and maybe especially if I disagree, is a key to conscious leadership. Even when I feel threatened, even when I feel like I want to fawn because this person has a title that I don't have, or more experience, or different status, fawning perpetuates that behavior. Now, coming at somebody as an object, if they're treating you as an object, doesn't do what we want either, because then it's two people in boxes having a conflict. So I've heard it said before that the only way to stop a game is for somebody to stop. And I guess that will have to be the person who comes to conscious awareness first. It doesn't matter about title, position, tenure. None of that matters. It's just a way to say, okay, where am I now? What's happening in my jaw? For me, it's my jaw. My jaw, my shoulders, my stomach, my chest, whatever. What's happening right now? And what is that a signal for? And in that space of, oh my gosh, did I fall below the line? Am I treating somebody as an object? In that space of awareness, we come back to above the line consciousness, open, curious, committed to learning. And that can be anyone. Title, position, tenure doesn't matter. This is possible for anyone who truly desires to build, I'll call it culture, but build a culture around them of seeing humans as humans. So the next time you notice yourself, and again, it could be anywhere in your body, it's probably in your body is a good indicator. You could ask yourself, am I trying to fix that person? Meaning I want him or her to act a certain way. Sometimes we say we want to fix our people. People don't need to be fixed because they're not broken. And I've heard that language used. Fix their behavior. Fixing something puts it back to the way it was. And often, especially now, we don't want things to go back to the way they were. We want to create a new awareness so that we can have breakthroughs. And in breakthroughs, things don't look as they did in the past. And so if we can remember our own humanity, especially when we're activated, we have a huge, there are huge possibilities. There's no possibility if we do the same thing over and over again and double down. Again, there are no guarantees with any of this. And yet, as an experiment to start understanding and seeing and noticing this in myself first can be a real breakthrough. Often, it's much easier to notice it in other people. He or she is not doing that, especially now when we're observing the world a lot. We're watching reels and threads and TikToks and news clips. And I mean, my goodness, it is overwhelming right now. The world we live in is overwhelming. And it's so easy to fall into that, seeing others as others, really, othering others. And this book, The Anatomy of Peace, was so profound when we read this in a group, because this is another story. And by the way, they go together. So this one is a story of a company and a guy who learned something for himself and then taught it to his people. And what he learned is what this book talks about. So in Leadership and Self-Deception, we're hearing from this guy who learned something somewhere and is teaching it to his people. And in The Anatomy of Peace, we learn what he learned. And it's so amazing. I'm reading from the back of the book. What if conflicts at home, conflicts at work, and conflicts in the world stem from the same root cause? What if we systematically misunderstand that cause? And what if, as a result, we systematically perpetuate the very problems we think we are trying to solve every day? What if? What if? It's just a possibility. What if? And in this book, they're talking about race relations. They're talking about kids, young people, how we could learn about ourselves and our relationships and our awarenesses. I don't want to give it away, and yet I think if we would all read this book together as we did in a group a few years ago here, I think we would have so many more possibilities available to us than the ones we think we're stuck in. When I'm watching what's going on in Minneapolis right now, and I'm watching on, TV, I'm watching, it can feel really removed. It can feel distant. It can feel like a movie. It can feel like when I was a kid, I used to watch TV and see palm trees. And seriously, this is a true confession here. I think I did when I think back, I thought palm trees were just a movie set. I thought everybody in the world had snow at Christmas and had, sun in the summer. I mean, I just thought everybody had the experience of living that I did. I don't know where I got that, but I hate to admit this. I was a junior in high school the first time I got on an airplane and flew on a class trip to San Diego, and I actually experienced palm trees in person. That was so mind-blowing to me. It just never occurred to me that people would live any differently than I did. I know, it sounds weird when I say it now. And yet, if that's how we're living our lives, believing that everybody sees the world the way I do, and there's no other way of seeing and no way of expanding my own worldview, this could be true of my strengths. Everybody can do this, it's easy. Or it could be my limitations. Oh, everybody believes this. That keeps us so stuck. And once we recognize that humans are humans and not objects, and we watch things on TV, like I'm watching Minneapolis, it's on TV. But here's the thing for me, where I live, and again, no aha for the world, because some of you have lived in this forever, and some people have lived in conflict in their surroundings. That's been their experience of living. This just hit really close to home for me this week, and I really understood it in a different way. And I see somebody getting shot, and I see all of the rhetoric about it and all of the perspectives and all of the doubling down and this is right, this is wrong, you're bad if you don't believe the way I do. And I see exactly what this book could help with. Because this book, the characters in the book are, I'm going to forget, I should have looked at this earlier, are, let me see if I can find it quickly. They're from two different ethnic groups, and they're supposed to be enemies. Arab and Muslim and Jewish. The two characters. They're supposed to be enemies. Their families have been enemies. And in this book, they're not enemies. And they're showing what can happen when people come together and get over their preconceived notions about the way things should be. So, I don't know. I feel like if we had each of us had a place to work through some of this, these conflicts we experience, these mixed messages we're getting, the feelings we must have when we feel righteous about our position, we're forgetting that people are humans and not objects, I think. I could be wrong about that. And I'd be open to a dialogue, which means that we've agreed to suspend previous assumptions in order to learn. I'm not interested in being yelled at and told I'm wrong and told how stupid I am. And I mean, what does that do? What does that do? When I'm told I'm wrong, when I'm told I'm stupid, when I'm told I'm insert label here, what's the point in having a conversation with someone who already believes that? When we watch comments on posts and we see people are saying, yeah. And some brave person will say, I wonder if there's another way to say it. And somebody says, oh, you're a insert label here. What is the actual point? What is the point? What is the point? To prove that everybody who believes the way I believe is the right person and everybody who believes differently than I do is the wrong person? Where did that come from? Have we gotten so used to being in the box and deceiving ourselves that we want so badly to be right? And the way we do that is to make somebody else wrong? I'll read you the back of the book here on leadership and self-deception. It says, through a story everyone can relate to about a man facing challenges on the job and in his family, the authors expose the fascinating ways that we can blind ourselves to our true motivations and unwittingly sabotage the effectiveness of our own efforts to achieve success and increase happiness. I'm actually sabotaging my own happiness when I do this. This is just once you see it, you can't unsee it. So once you see it and then you still choose to ignore it, that says something about the people who choose to do that. If we really do want things to get better or to improve or to change, then I have to start. It has to start with me. I can't be walking around saying to everybody else, do something. What am I doing? What am I doing? I can talk. Yeah, we can talk. That's where it starts. Talk is great. But if we only ever talk about things and we don't actually take different action, then what's the point? That's what I wanted to leave you with today, because that's what I wouldn't say struggling, although that's the first word that comes to mind is, I'm struggling with some of this because I do crave connection. And for me, I want to understand and I want to know from somebody who has a diametrically opposed worldview from mine, how did you get there? Tell me more about that. I'm curious about that. And most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time, sometimes that comes across as me trying to catch somebody at something. I've told you that before if you've listened to this podcast. I've been removed from situations. I've been asked to leave situations because I think in my reflection on it, I asked too many questions. I asked things because I'm curious and because I want to understand, and it was misinterpreted as trying to catch them at something, I think. Again, since people don't debrief with me, I am left to make my own, come to my own conclusions. Um, and okay, I get it. Not everybody's going to want to do this work, and that's okay too. And for those of you who do, let's get together. You are not alone. There are ways to have these kinds of conversations that may or may not have right or wrong answers. The process is the point, I think. The way we get better at the communication, even when it's difficult, the way we can build our compassion is what the world is craving right now without really knowing how to articulate that. And if we could get together and build communities of people who, instead of literally or figuratively pulling the trigger before we actually explore the possibilities, unless we're okay with that, something's got to change. And I'm willing to go first. And if you want to join me, I please do something. Please take some action. And you do you. Take the action that feels right to you. If it feels right to you to fight somebody else and step up and, punch somebody in the nose, I'm not condoning that. I think there's another way. And I would just ask, how is what you're currently doing working to get what you say you really, truly, really, really, truly desire? How is what you're currently doing, the action you're currently taking, working to get what you say you really, truly desire? It's just a question. If it's working, please keep doing it. That's the point. But if it's not, there are possibilities out there just waiting to be discovered. And I'd love to be part of that dialogue. So reach out to me. I don't always know the how of things, but I'm pretty sure that if we keep staying in the conversation and the dialogue, we together can find some sort of solution. Maybe not the answer, but a solution we can try. And then if that solution doesn't produce the result we say we want, then together we say, well, that didn't really produce the result. What else could we do? Is there something else, some other action we could take, I could take, that you could help me see? Because I only see through my own eyes. I can't see what it looks like from other perspectives. I need your help in doing that. And I want to do that and have those conversations with people I trust to help me see. Not people who want to redirect me and tell me how stupid I am. That does not work. That doesn't work to get the result. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe it works for some people. Maybe what they want is people to be objects in their lives and they want to blame and they want to do that. Maybe that's what they truly desire. If that's the case, those aren't the people I'm looking to connect with right now. So if anything resonates with you in this, please reach out. Just reach out. Again, I don't know. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to connect with humans. And I want to treat humans as humans in all their complexity and all their beautiful diversity. Because that's where I learn. That's where I stay above the line, open, curious, committed to learning. That's my commitment to the world I live in. I'll do my best every day. And if I falter, I'd love you to help me redirect by offering me another point of view. Not by telling me how dumb I am. Not by treating me as an object. So, as always, find a way to get real this week. Radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. And please don't hear the word radical the way the world has hijacked it. Radical just means getting back to the root. Radical. Get back to what makes you you. Get back to what we've forgotten, our humanity. That's radical. Consider how you might do that this week. And I'll look forward to talking with you again. Thanks.